Welcome back to our Morningside Youth YouTube channel. If you watched our previous videos, you may notice that there's something a little different about this video. We're in a new location. Now, I'm excited because we're going to be starting a new series called Essential. And obviously, amidst all that's going on, that word essential has been thrown out a lot, talking about different businesses that are essential, that are necessary. The word essential actually means absolutely necessary or extremely important. And what I want to do during this next series is I want us to look and see what is essential for our lives. And to do this, the best way to do that is to look into the life of Jesus and to see what was essential to him. What were some things that were absolutely necessary? What were some things that were extremely important to him? So a couple of weeks ago, my family and I, we sat down and we started to do a devotion through the Gospel of Mark. And as we were reading through the Gospel of Mark, I began to notice that there are certain patterns that Jesus did on a regular basis. And so what we want to do is we want to look at the life of Jesus and we want to pull out some of those essential things that he did. And we want to then apply those to our lives. So we want to welcome you to this new series called Essential. The first thing as we look at the life of Jesus that you see is one of the main things that you see is that he spent time in prayer. So the first essential thing that we'll look at is this idea of prayer. In fact, in the beginning of the Gospel of Mark, in Mark chapter 1, verse 35, it says this: "Very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, he went out and he made his way to a deserted place, and there he was praying." You see, prayer was essential to Jesus because it marked the beginning of his ministry and it even marked the end of his ministry. At the beginning of Jesus' ministry, he went out into the desert for 40 days, there praying and fasting. We read about him being tempted. Then at the end of his ministry, we read the night before his crucifixion, what was he doing? He was spending time in prayer in a garden. So we see that prayer was essential to all of Jesus' ministry. And in this passage in Mark, in verse 35, we see that prayer was primary to Jesus, not secondary. It was primary because it says that Jesus got up in the morning while it was still dark. Let me ask you a question. What are you willing to wake up for? What are you willing to wake up for while it is still dark? I don't know about you, but most of those things are primary things to me, right? But we also see that prayer was also intentional. The scripture says that Jesus got up and he went to a deserted place. He was intentional about getting alone and spending time with the Father. And so the last thing we see is that prayer was unhurried and it was enjoyed. You see, it says, the last verse, it says that Jesus was praying. And if you read the verses that follow that, in fact, you'll even see that the disciples had to come and look for Jesus because he was spending so much time in prayer. So as we think about this idea of prayer, we see that it was so important to Jesus, but not just to Jesus. The disciples noticed that prayer was so important to Jesus that it was the only thing recorded in Scripture that we have where the disciples asked Jesus to teach them. In Luke chapter 11, verse 1, the disciples come to Jesus and they say, "Teach us to pray." They didn't say, "Teach us to walk on water." They didn't say, "Teach us to heal these people." No, they saw something important. They saw something that was essential about prayer to Jesus, and they said, "Lord, teach us to pray." So, as we start this series of Essential, we want to just again encourage you to spend time in prayer. Because as we spend time in prayer, that's where we can really sink to the heart of God. You see, we've been making these YouTube videos, and I've learned a couple of things. And when we make these videos, we have a visual camera running, and then we also have audio running. And before we shoot every video, I have to clap my hands. And when we clap our hands, the person that goes and edits the video is then able to sync the audio with the visual together. And everybody knows, if you've ever watched a video where the audio and the visual are not synced, something just doesn't seem right. You see, sometimes our life just doesn't seem right with God. Maybe it's because we're not spending time in prayer. Maybe it's because prayer is not essential to us. So I want to encourage you this week, the challenge this week, the essential challenge this week is to take the first 5 minutes of your day and the last 5 minutes of your day and to spend time in prayer and make it essential.